So I think for me, how I look at my own personal finances is that I want to be able to be self-sustaining so that I can ask for as little help as possible.
I was going to say, I tell people all the time, credit cards is literally legalized loan sharking. I mean, basically, it's what it
really
is.
It's a chess game. Like if you make the wrong move, you're going to be punished for it. And then you may not see it right then and there. You may not see the move happen.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified. I am your host, Jax Crider, and today we have with me Mr. Lee, and he is a very dear friend of mine, and I will let him sort of introduce himself and tell us why he is excited to be on the podcast today.
Hey guys, my name's Lee with Veterans Lending Group. That's I'm a loan originator, as well as sales manager, and the national educator for Veterans Lending Group. Also an enthusiast with cooking and a piano student, and trying to attempt professional tennis at such a late age. So that's my lifestyle. But for the most part, I'm here to support Jacqueline as best as I can to give her some awesome content, I hope. So I hope I can be a good guest for you.
Yes, absolutely. So Lee and I have known each other for a lot of years, and he is an amazing guy and is always pretty awe-inspiring. We may or may not have had a crazy, drunken Backstreet Boy situation in Vegas at one point. So there might be videos maybe somewhere.
I think they're all lock and key under yours.
They are. So. And I'm not going to lie. When I get upset in life, I just go back to the videos and I'm happy instantly. Because it was a good time.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun. So
it was so much fun. And by the way, that
Backstreet Boy song, I'm like, that was some good moments.
I was going to say that came about because Lee actually had tickets to Backstreet Boys, and he was like, hey, I'm going to be going to this thing.
So
we're in Vegas. I
was planning to go by myself. Like,
yeah. And he said that he had tickets, and I was like, I want to go. Please let me go. Yeah. And what we didn't realize, I don't know, maybe you realize this, it was the first time that they had played since like COVID.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And it was so cool. And
we were there.
Yeah. I was going to say, it made me.
That's what it was. It was meant to be.
That's exactly right. And it made me literally want to be more of a fan. But anyways, that's all we're here to talk about. If you have never listened to this podcast before, basically what Financial Mastery Simplified is talking about things that touch the financial realm, the financial space, trying to simplify them down, try to change your thought perspective and make sure that you get wherever you're going in life intentionally. There is tons of different ways, tons of different options. And in the era where, man, like there's so many choices and it's information overload, I just want to give you good information to be able to make decisions that fuel your life forward in the way that you want to live. So whatever that looks like for you, that is what we sort of want to talk about and figure out and thought through. And right before we started this, Lee and I were kind of chatting a little bit about that, about how most people think that consequences are always a bad thing. That if you get a consequence, it's a bad thing because we have associated that word so much with like that negative connotation. But the truth is everything in life has a consequence, good and bad, right? Just depending. And I've always been of the mind that I want you to get where you're going and I want you to get there intentionally. And Lee kind of has a unique perspective about that because his family was not originally from here. So maybe Lee, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my family immigrated from Vietnam in the mid 80s to Oklahoma of all places. So I always get a lot of flack for that, or a lot of questions for the most part, and a lot of assumptions that I still live in a teepee or ride horses, which I don't do. I wish I knew how to ride a horse. I just didn't live in a teepee. We still dealt with tornadoes on a yearly basis, hundreds of tornadoes per year. So that wasn't a big deal. That wasn't like anything uncommon, I guess. But it wasn't until I left Oklahoma when I joined the Navy and realized, oh, that is weird. Why is there such a big Asian Vietnamese community in Oklahoma? It's because it's cheap. We're cheap people, that's what it boils down to. So, but yeah, they immigrated there. And then I was born about 6 years after they immigrated to Vietnam. So I'm a 90s baby.
I was gonna say you're a little younger than me. Little younger than me. That's okay. Well, we won't hold that against you. But we were talking a little bit about how a lot of like what happens with your thought process with money relates a lot back to how you were raised, and what your family upbringing was. I was telling Lee that for the longest, and even now still, I'm not always the best with money because my mom was raised in a very, very poor family. And so she never wanted to be poor again. And because she never wanted to be poor again, she held on to her money like crazy. And so, I mean, I can remember as a child, we were not allowed to go to the movie. If we did, it was very rare. We were never allowed to buy treats like popcorn or Coke or any of the things, that we would typically, most American families would buy at the movie theater, because my mom thought that was a luxury and just super unnecessary. So it kind of gave me that YOLO mentality there for a minute, where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do these things because I never had them as a child, right?
That makes sense.
Which, I mean, the truth of the matter is you have to kind of decide, like, what she did makes sense, right? Because she had some goals to never be poor again. And that's what she wanted to make sure she achieved. And so
she defined poorness in a sense of not having probably money in the bank is what
correct. Exactly.
Like. So,
yeah.
So it's, I guess, for me, it's a very, I guess what was interesting was that it wasn't so much that, it was that we didn't have money at all when we first came here. And then even when I was born, we weren't living a super lavish lifestyle, but everything we did was, I think, more special in that way, because by the time I was maybe 5 years old, all my siblings were working. Whether my mom with her alteration store or they were actually doing their own jobs. So everyone kind of came together to help with our family things, family events. So I think for that, even though we were technically in the poor class, anything that we did was a special moment that we all worked together and came to the table, like whether went to the movies or went to Golden Corral. That was a treat, right? So we had to get straight A's in order to get that kind of thing. It wasn't, I remember, like, if you got straight A's on your report card, you would go to Chuck E. Cheese and you get a bunch of like 20 tokens. And I remember those days. Or we go out to, there's this really awesome Chinese restaurant that my family would go to, and and we knew the owners, and they would sit us in a special table, and it would only be maybe once a quarter, maybe twice a year that we would go there, but it was like some of the best food that we've had. And yes, there was a lot of luxuries. Like, looking back, we didn't have everything, but we had what we needed. And I'm still very close to my siblings today, and it took me a while, and I grew the narrative as that I didn't want to ask for too much, ask for what I needed as far as like school as a kid and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just assumed we were all poor, and I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to take away from the pot. That's basically what it boiled down for my own selfish needs. So I think for me, how I look at my own personal finances is that I want to be able to be self-sustaining, so that I can ask for as little help as possible. But also, my other piece that I kind of built out in my adult years now is that if it's ultimately when the worst thing happens, what is left? And that's how I think about it. It's like, if I were, for some reason, somehow ended up kicking the bucket, what am I leaving behind for the rest of my family, for my sisters, my nephews, and my niece, and like, what is left? And what I don't want to leave them behind is debt. Like, I don't want to leave them responsibilities to have to stretch their finances, take care of my finances, because I wasn't prepared. That's kind of where my head's at now. So
stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Welcome to Financial Mastery Simplified, your go-to podcast for making smart money decisions. We break down complex financial topics into easy-to-understand advice you can use every day. Our experts cover everything from budgeting and saving to investing and retirement planning. We give you the tools to take control of your money and build the future you want. With Financial Mastery Simplified, you'll feel informed and empowered to make the best choices for your financial health. Tune in to Financial Mastery Simplified on your favorite podcast platform. Start your journey to financial confidence today. Welcome to House U, where we believe in the power of education. At House U, we're more than just a brand. We're your partner in home ownership, dedicated to educating, equipping, and empowering you every step of the way. Education is at the heart of everything we do. We offer comprehensive resources designed to make home ownership simple and accessible for all. From understanding mortgage options to mastering home maintenance, House U provides the knowledge you need to make informed decisions with confidence. We host workshops and seminars, bringing together experts and community members to share insights and build a stronger, more informed community. Because when you're educated, you're empowered. House U, home ownership made simple for all. Visit our website or contact us today to start your journey with HouseU. Empower yourself with knowledge and embrace the joy of home ownership.
Now, back to our conversation.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of times, like, it's super hard because how you grew up has a lot to do with it. And then
Mhm.
also, we live in a culture where everybody is convinced that we need more and more and more and more and more. And you're right. I can remember as a child going out to eat was like, it was a big deal
Mhm.
because we only ate out maybe once a week. And it was usually Sunday after church. Like, that's usually like the one meal we ate out. And
That was
so it was
buffets.
like
Those
sort of
Chinese
a
buffets,
treat.
$10,
What'd you
$10
say?
entry fee, $10 buffets for us, or not. It was eight. Oh, sorry, $10. Or if you had more than a family of like 3 or 4, it would go down to like $8 or something like that. So,
So the whole family came. Got it.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
we
oh yeah, yeah.
We ate like our one of the number one places we ate at was a southern restaurant. You probably know because I think they had them in Oklahoma, Black Eyed Pea. That was like
Yeah, yeah.
the place, man. They don't
Yep.
exist anymore, unfortunately, but like that was definitely the Sunday
Black Eyed Peas,
afternoon
Mushroom
spot.
Sizzler. Where
Yeah,
else?
that was like
Yeah.
the Sunday afternoon spot. And so it was a huge deal. And I think a lot of times we sort of desensitize ourselves from some of the things that are kind of special in life because we've just convinced ourselves it's normal that everybody has them. I mean, I talk about all the
Oh
time
yeah.
to sometimes my clients and I say, look, here's a reality. You really don't need one of these every year, a new cell phone, unless it's like for work. Because the truth of the matter is they last 3, 4, 5, 6 years
Oh yeah.
before the technology totally goes out, but we've convinced ourselves, oh no, but I need a new one. And they made it really easy to be able to fall into that trap. Because what they tell you is not it costs $800. They tell you it's just gonna be $15, $20 a month. And you think to yourself, like, oh, it's just 15 or $20.
Yeah.
Like that's not that bad. Until it's 15 or $20 times 40.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, it's kind of wild to think because I'm on that phase now where I'm like I only get a new phone every 2 years because new phone comes out every year. So
Literally.
every for me the Pixels I always get the odd number of Google Pixels. So just because I usually wait 2 or 3 years before the next one comes out. And you're right. I mean, before I went into this industry, because it is requires your phone quite a bit, and we do need high producing processing phones because we do quite a bit on our phones.
Absolutely.
Use maybe 40%, even when I entered this industry, even before, maybe use 10%, 20% of the capabilities of what the phone is now. So, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right that, and who needs AirPods? Like, seriously, I think the AirPods are the most silliest accessories to people. Like, I see people wear them. I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks kind of silly. So,
Don't
but
tell Patrick that because he wears his AirPods all the time.
well, and here's the thing. This is coming from a guy who has irregular ear holes. So I have one ear that's too big and one ear that's too small. So I have one ear that's always like, when I put it in, it gets uncomfortable after an hour. The other one is already gone in the first 15 minutes. Like it's out of my ear.
So
So
I was gonna say
that's
the
what it
funny
is.
thing is I only ever really wear one. Even though like you know what a lot of people put in both. If
Yeah.
I'm wearing one, I'm only usually ever wearing one.
That's why I got these
Um,
bone conducting ones and they're great. So,
but I was gonna say a lot of times I think people just haven't thought through how those small things turn into big things. I mean, you and I
oh, yeah.
see in the mortgage space more than most people that a lot of times when you've convinced yourself of that, $15 or $20 item a month over time, that if you had just taken that money and set it aside into a savings account, then you'd have the down payment a lot easier than you think you would.
Or that much more buying power. Like all of it
Absolutely.
just kind of waterfalls on itself because I think what a lot of people associate with credit cards is like it's an extension of their finances, and like it is, but not supposed to take advantage of it.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people see a credit limit and they're like, oh, I have another $10,000 to spend. That's totally fine. I can pay that off. And I think a lot of people don't understand the full aspect of how credit card companies profit off your credit card. Like
Oh
it
yeah.
is ridiculous how much interest is charged on top of your payment in addition to the balance. So you get charged twice. And then people are like, oh, I make the minimum payment and it's never going down. It's like, that's because all the interest that's charged, you're never going to pay it down if you make the minimum
I was gonna say,
payment.
I tell people all the time,
So
credit cards is literally legalized loan sharking. I mean, basically, it's what
it
it
really
is.
is. What did Barry Habib say? Debt is something you put forward, on a purchase that you could have made later, or it brings the purchase forward. So you're really just paying for your And this is what I tell a lot of clients who buy a house, especially that I see in a decent amount of debt. And when I say decent amount, I'm talking about that, like, a substantial amount of credit card debt, maybe over a $10,000 balance that has maintained, and maybe a car loan for the amount they shouldn't really need. Like, who needs a $90,000 truck? Like, no one needs that, like, at all, unless you're working.
I was gonna say, it blows my mind how expensive vehicles have gotten. My car, woot woot, is finally paid off, and all I gotta say is she's gonna drive until the wheels fall completely off of her. Like when she dies, that's when the new car is coming, because I'm just like, man, I haven't not had a car payment in a while, and it's such a great feeling of like not having the extra expense every single month, like
especially the year after we just had. I mean, Jesus.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, for those of you who don't know, mortgage has been struggling badly. I probably have made the least amount of money in the last 2 years that I've made in 10.
Yeah.
In mortgage.
And I mean, even as a loan officer, I mean, you can definitely see, like, despite having the financial awareness for other people, sometimes we also don't have it for ourselves as an industry as a whole. So that's why a lot of loan officers have left the business in the last year, because especially the ones that went through, at least started in 2019 and maybe until last year, is that I'm not gonna lie, we made a lot of money in 2020, 2021. More than most of it had nothing to do with us. It's just good timing and being in the right space.
Right.
But that financial success, where did it lead to? So I was very happy that year happened to help me survive this last year.
Absolutely.
But I'm also a victim of the whole $90,000 car. I get it. I was
gonna say, I call myself out all the time, because the truth is that I'm not always the best of my money. I tell people all the time, look, at least I got there intentionally. Like, I knew the decisions that I was making. Unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is people haven't thought this all the way through, right? So understand that when you are borrowing money against that credit card, if you don't have the money at the end of the month to pay it back, you are going to just start going further and further and further into debt, right? That is just the reality. So if you understand that, and
20% interest, I mean,
right, what you're getting into, then I'm not necessarily saying it's always the worst decision, just depending on where your lifestyle's at and what you want to do. But a lot of times it creates a lot of pressure that people don't think through, and it becomes a cascading effect. Like, I'll tell you, so there's a good friend of mine who was in our space for a long time, and she always blew my mind, because I knew how much money she made, because she and I, when we went into this one company together, we were paid on a salary amount because we were handling a certain kind of clientele, et cetera, right? And so basically what they did is they just like gave us a certain amount of money every single month. So I knew what she made. And every single month, she overdrew her account to pay rent, to not have late fees every single month. Wow. And it would just blow my mind, because, and at one point she rented a house from me, and I would tell her, I'm like, dude, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go ahead and waive a couple of days of late fees, not charge them to you, because literally she would be charging herself, $25 a day in overdraft fees.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, this is just a poor planning thing. And the thing is that it's because of how she was raised. It was always like rob Peter to pay Paul, which I understand. Sometimes that's reality, right? Like, I've been there, and I have robbed Peter to pay Paul.
Finances are a chess match, it's ultimately, and it's a long one. Like, it's years over years. Like, the day I think we enter high school, honestly, it's a chess match. And ultimately, when you lose, it's because you made a wrong decision at some point, which ends up cascading into a complete loss. So, so that's what it boils down to. It's a chess game. Like, if you make the wrong move, you're going to be punished for it. And then you may not see it right then and there. You may not see the move happen, the lose happen, right happen, but you're going to see, like, this falls through, and then the next thing falls through, and then the next thing falls through. And this is a very long-term thing. It can last, depending on who you are and how much money you make, last 30, 40, 50 years. Sometimes it could be in little as 5, which would really suck. But I mean, that's what it boils down to. It's, I personally, and sorry to cut you off, but I'm in my personal opinion that, a person's financial prowess is a result of their emotional intelligence. Like, how are you going to handle when things are good and bad, especially if you achieved a lot of financial success? It's going to come through, right?
Right. Well, I think to a lot of people, like, there have been some things that have been outside of people's control, right? Like in the
Sure,
last couple of
absolutely.
years, job losses and things like that do make things a
Right.
lot more challenging. And like sometimes you do take risks that don't necessarily pay off, or maybe they don't flush out exactly how you imagine them to do. So understand
Right.
that there are going to be cases where it isn't going to be exactly perfect, but a lot of it has to do with, again, did you get there knowingly? Did you get there on purpose, right? Like at least you made the decision knowing that it could be a
Did you
success or a
prepare for
failure.
that decision? Like, if
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
did
Did you
you
did you
prepare for the
prepare
worst
for the
case scenario?
decision, right? What's your, like, if you do get in a rut, what's your plan to get out of it?
Mhm.
Because if you get yourself in a rut, I mean, financially speaking, my husband and I took a huge risk here not horribly long ago, like a couple years back, and there's a really good likelihood it will pay off, but it's been a really hard drain on us financially and emotionally for about the last like year,
Oh, I'm sure.
18 months. And it's
Yeah.
not been easy at all. So, are we really strong? And do we sort of know how much we bid off? I mean, we did to a point, but the
Right.
reality is we
With the
knew what we
exit
were getting into.
strategy, what's the point of no return kind of thing? Yeah. I mean,
Right. We
those
knew what we were
metrics
getting
definitely.
to. There was a plan.
Yep.
Now, it may
Yep.
not have worked out exactly as we wanted, as you know about the
But there was
whole.
still some intentionality. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Correct.
that's the difference. Like, a lot of people, especially the borrowers I come across, there's not a whole lot of intentionality when it comes to their finances, and they see buying a house as the same as buying a car, which I'm like, this is not 2008. You can't just buy a car like it's off the street, and it's not something that you just go in and get, and then next thing you do is you have it, and then that's it. Like, there's so much more. There's not only the financial responsibility, but just an adult responsibility to take care of the house, and there's a legal responsibility and all this other stuff that comes with owning a house.
I was going to
So
say,
it is
agreed.
the ultimality of testing your adulthood, I guess, in a sense. So, but it's really, once you kind of figure it out, it's really not that much different from renting. You just get to do more stuff. So,
Well, and the
yeah.
truth of the matter is, and I say this to people all the time, I'm a big proponent, obviously, of buying a house, not just because of what we do for a living, but because I was a homeowner super early. And I really
Mhm.
do believe it's a huge wealth differentiator. For most
Oh, absolutely.
really wealthy people, they have owned real estate. Not all, but like the vast majority, right? Now,
Yeah.
what I will say is, I don't think it's for everybody. And I do think that people need to be cognizant and ask themselves questions about where they're at in life and what they're doing. Now their responsibility level, likely if they have the responsibility to own a home, they likely also would have the responsibility to like invest in other things, etc. And if they don't, maybe they wouldn't do the
Yeah.
investing. I don't know. But I do think that, you have to assess yourself, because I mean, I know people who are like you, who are kind of like the eternal bachelor, and they maybe don't want to own homes because they just don't want to be tied down, right? Like maybe that's not their thing. Maybe
Yeah.
they move around a lot or whatever, right? Or they don't, I had a lady that I did a loan for, and she was really worried about owning her own home because she's a single woman. And she asked me, and she's like, "Do you think it's okay?" And I said, "Girl, I've been a single woman for a while, and I own my own house, and I have for a lot of years." I said, "I think it's just attitude and intention and how you decide." I had no problem with it, but not everybody's there.
It's true. I agree. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people that I'd say owning a house is a good idea, and you're right. I absolutely, I fully agree with you that it's not for everybody. And some people just haven't earned the ability, or haven't gotten to a place in their life where owning a house makes the most sense. That's
Sure.
just what it is. If they have the right mindset of, like, I think a lot of people who come into it who have the right mindset are typically like, all right, I understand renting sucks. I understand that at least that level of maturity is there. I'm like, okay, so
Right.
that's a start. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And they're thinking of their house the right way, as a future investment. And that's what it is. It's a forced savings account,
Yep.
as we all like to call it, because some of your payment does go toward paying down the loan, which effectively impacts the equity of your home, assuming in a non-appreciating market. But what's cool about owning a house, on the financial sense, is that you can buy a house with whatever loan program, minimum 5% down, or most 5% down, VA 0% down. But what's interesting is that with an investment in real estate, it's not the appreciation of the money you put into the asset, it's the asset itself. So, for example, it's not 5% on the money you put into us, it's 5% on the entire asset.
Right.
So, of what you own. So that's what I think a lot of people forget, that piece is that it's 5% of how what the asset's worth, not the money you put into it. So if you get 5% a year on a $500,000 house, that's like it's math of $25,000 a year, I think,
Right.
roughly. So it's $25,000 a year on a appreciating asset, and that's at least your down payment. At least your down payment, and then some. And then the next year is another 5% on $525,000. So that's about 30 grand. So I think a lot of people forget that piece in regards to that it's appreciating on the asset, not the amount of money you spent on the house. So,
well, and like, I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of people don't think through the long term either. Like, we helped somebody buy a house a few years back, and some stuff has happened in their lives which has caused them to have some unnecessary bills, etc. Well, we were just able to deal with a refinance for them where we were able to save them a ton of money every single month on all, because they had all these really high interest credit cards, and they would not have had that money had they not bought the house, because that money would not have existed. They would have just been paying their rent.
They would have been stuck in that cycle.
Correct.
Another thing that I really try to warn clients about is what to do after they sell their first house, whether they're on their second house or buying a rental, whatever it is. Once they sell their first house, I tell them, all right, if you're going to make a bunch of equity, it's totally fine if you go off to pay off your debt. That's totally fine. But what I've seen,
put yourself back in it.
But yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So I tell,
put yourself back in it.
Look, I've seen so many people. What ends up happening is that they buy their first house, they make a bunch of equity, they have a bunch of equity, they sell the house, and then what ends up happening is more than 60% of those profits go to pay off debt. And then exactly right, they buy the next house and they go further back into debt, and then it becomes a cycle of buying a house to only pay off your debt. And I'm like, it's really just a get out of jail free card and kind of a quick solution to not be financially responsible, which is really unfortunate. So what I tell them a lot of the times is, okay, your first house, you can do that. However, what needs to happen is that the second time you buy the house, hopefully when you sell it, you're not doing the same thing and you can put the money forward. And that's the point of generational wealth, is to be able to put the money forward. Because if you're putting money backwards, it's only going backwards. It's only for your past self instead of your future self, which is really meant for your next generation.
Well, so, and I think it's hilarious how much they all grill you and I on interest rates, because they're like, what is, whatever. And I'm like, would we like to discuss how high your car interest rate is and your credit cards are? Because the last time I checked, at least the debt I'm helping you get into is tax deductible. Like, there's some interest that's tax deductible. You're getting some actual benefits of like a place, like a roof over your head and appreciation and some other things. But you're going to like grill me about my interest rate when like you're over here.
Like, I want you in a high interest rate. Like,
right. I always tell people, I'm like, look, dude, I'd give you 0% if that was a choice. Okay. Like, I don't care.
What do you guys think this is? Like, I want you in a high interest rate. What is this, 2007? No, this is not how this works anymore. Like, I don't get paid based on the higher rate I give you at all. Actually, it's the opposite. It's based on your loan amount. So it has nothing to do with the interest rate. I want you in a better interest rate. If I can give you a better interest rate, I would, but like, this is just the way things are. So it's crazy. And it's perspective, right? They don't know. And it is what it is. I mean, a lot of people don't really fully understand the loan origination business. Even most loan officers don't understand it, but
for sure not. That's what I was going to say. A lot of times I told somebody that I have done some stuff with lately. She's really young. She's 18. So she's about to graduate high school. And I called her a baby adult, because I said, you're an adult and you should have the respect that's given to adults because you're an adult. And I said, but let me just be clear. If you think that all adults that you're around have figured it out, we don't. I'm still wanting to know what I want to be when I grow up. I said, you're just failing forward and you're trying to make the best decisions you could possibly make. Right? Like, it's not perfect.
Honestly, that's absolutely right. I think that's the best approach to give advice to them. I would say the one thing I did kind of right in my 20s was fuck around and find out. Sorry, are we allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So basically, I mean, that's what your early, late teens and early 20s are for. Fuck around to find out. Go try some shit out. I joined the Navy and I went to go do all this cool shit relatively. I thought it was boring for the most part, but I went into a field that I had no interest in doing, but I found out some cool stuff. Like, I was able to learn some things, and I got a lot of value leaving the military. Like, I learned a lot of intrinsic things, and that's applied to the industry I'm in now. Do I expect to be a loan officer for the rest of my life? No, absolutely not. But I do hope that whatever I've learned from both in the military as well as what I've learned being a loan officer and a sales manager, it will take me to where my next journey lies. So I think the main thing is, fuck around, find out, and commit to a discipline. Even if you don't
Right.
like it, learn why you don't like it, and then learn why there's some things that you can take away from it.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Hello, and welcome to PBJ Mortgage, where your home ownership dreams become reality. Today, we want to share why choosing PBJ Mortgage is the right choice for your home financing needs. At PBJ Mortgage, we're built on a foundation of values that drive us every day. Our commitment to educate, empathize, and empower our clients sets us apart in the mortgage industry. Our clients are at the heart of everything we do, and their success stories speak volumes. With years of experience, our team possesses in-depth knowledge of the mortgage programs, ensuring you receive expert guidance and the best possible rates. We offer a diverse range of loan options to suit your unique needs, including conventional, FHA, VA, and more. No matter your situation, we've got a solution. At PBJ Mortgage, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service. Our dedicated loan officers are here to guide you every step of the way, making the process as smooth as making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We understand that time is of the essence, which is why we've streamlined our processes for efficiency and convenience. Transparency and clear communication are paramount. You'll always know where you stand throughout your mortgage journey. Reach out to us today to set up a call to discover your options. If you're ready to make your home ownership dreams a reality, contact PBJ Mortgage today. Let us empower you during this exciting journey. Phone number 4-693-733-107 www.pbjteam.com. Visit our website or give us a call to get started. We look forward to helping you secure your future home. PBJ Mortgage, where home begins. Imagine having the power to control your financial destiny, no matter where you start. Welcome to Financial Mastery Simplified, where financial education is tailored to your unique journey. We cover everything you need, from basic budgeting and saving strategies to advanced investing and retirement planning. Learn at your own pace with lessons that match your level of experience, whether you're a beginner or looking to enhance your financial knowledge. Join our community of learners and benefit from shared insights and expert guidance. Financial Mastery Simplified equips you with the skills and confidence to take charge of your financial future, your life, your terms. Ready to master your finances? Enroll in our courses today at Financial Mastery Simplified. Start your path to financial independence now.
Now, back to our conversation.
Well,
So,
you have to lay out what like the big rocks are for you and like what's really actually important. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like everybody has something different, and for some people it's travel, for some people it's having a family, for some people it's and everybody's
Absolutely.
path is different. Just again, like I said, my biggest thing is get there intentionally. Do like
Yeah.
we have so much information at our fingertips that nobody ever had before. And it's unfortunate with this information at our fingertips, we're learning less and less from the school
It's
system
sometimes too much
about
information, almost.
what'd you say?
Sometimes it's almost too much information.
Oh no, it is. It's a lot of too much information. It really sometimes makes my anxiety up there because like I could go down rabbit holes for about 20 years to figure stuff out.
Right.
And that's why, I mean, honestly, it's part of why I started this podcast too, is just to give some information on like to let people know there is like you can go and find the opposing argument for literally anything. You can literally go online and one person will tell you buying a house is the best investment you'll ever make. And another person will tell you it's the worst choice you could ever make.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it depends. I mean, every time I make a video on anything, I probably get in trouble because I always say it depends, but it is the truth. It depends on what's important to you, right? Like, what is your lifestyle? What are your goals? How are you? What are you trying? So if you don't think those things through and set them out, you're never going to figure out exactly where you need to be and what you want to do as far as that goes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, for me, thinking back when I was in my early 20s, I definitely knew I wanted to be in some form of real estate investing. So that was one of my things, regardless of what I was doing, regardless of what I was doing for a real job and things like that, and actively. I knew real estate investing is something I've always wanted to get into, which eventually led me to buy my first house when I was 23 years old. Oh God, that was like 9 years ago. So, uh, so yeah, that was one of hers, and it wasn't it. And that's the other thing. That in addition to that, maybe that is one of your goals, is to be a realist, have a house. But everyone's goals in regards to what that house does for them is totally different. Some
Sure.
want to buy a house to grow a family in. Some want to buy a house like myself, who wanted to invest in real estate, and some other whatever other reason that the house gets you to whatever you feel like the goal is. It's ultimately what those rocks are, as you mentioned.
Well, I was
And
gonna
it's
say
important.
mine was I didn't want people to be able to control what I could do. Like my mom is interior design, so like I wanted to be able to paint the walls whatever the heck color I wanted to paint the walls
Right.
and have a yard for my dog, and you know what I mean, like these kinds of
Right.
things. Like that was what
So it gave you a
mattered to
sense of
me.
independence, basically,
Exactly.
to freely make your choice inside of your own safe space, right?
Exactly.
And that's great. And for some people, that's a goal, and for some people, it's not. And it's ultimately what you mentioned before. It's whatever rocks you want to establish along the way. How you get to those rocks, who cares? As long as
Right.
you're heading in the right direction. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I
people.
joined the Navy to be an engineer, basically a nuclear propulsion plant operator, and I did not want to be that at all. I knew that was not what I wanted to do, especially when I got out, even though it would have led me to a lot of other great jobs. Not interested at all. So, makes sense.
Yeah, people just need to understand and know that the biggest thing is you've got to kind of lay things out, whether that be writing out your goals, your budget, like things like that. Because, like I said, it just needs to be intentional. And I'm not saying that you have to be penny pincher, watch every single like little teeny penny, whatever, right? Like I don't operate that way in my own life. If that's how you want to operate, that's
Right.
fine. But you do need to have an idea of where your money is going, because I promise you, you will be surprised how much you spend on stupid crap. We all do it.
Yeah. And I think in addition to that, I think that there's some, like, people mistake the planning process for hesitation. Does that make sense? So like they feel like, oh, I just want to go do it. And like that's totally fine. To make the decision to go do it is great. But I think there's like some impulse control versus where they think the planning keeps them from doing the things. Like, no. The plan is to get you there better. But
Right.
the key thing is to have a plan so that you can accomplish what you just set out to do.
Well, then
Think plan, right?
like when the thing pops up on Facebook because the algorithm dialed you in and says, "Ooh, this is like the shiny thing that Lee will think is amazing and want to buy." Then
Right.
you'll be like, "Okay, I know I have this $200 of slush that I'm allowed to spend on whatever the hell I want, and I could spend it on that." You know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Right.
just like I encourage people when we do mortgages for them, don't stretch yourself so tight that you can't live your life. Because
Right.
what'll happen is you'll hate the house then. You'll hate it because
Yeah.
you basically are every single dollar you're making is just literally to barely pay your bills and, to eat. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that's not good either, because if you love going to the movies, if that's your thing and you want to go every weekend, I mean, that's an expense,
Right.
right? One that
Right.
has increased over time. And so,
I mean, all hobbies are going to cost money. I mean, that's why they're
absolutely.
hobbies.
Yeah, I mean, you have
So,
tennis and piano and all these things, right? I mean, all that costs money.
yeah, absolutely. It really does. So, yeah, and I think, yeah, so between like the trying to like I'm a huge, and the thing is, the reason why I say that because I'm also a bit have impulse control problems sometimes too. So the reason why I
We all
joined the
do.
Navy was complete impulse. Like I wanted to my the things I wanted to do was get out of Oklahoma and be financially independent. So the Navy gave me both. So I was like, all right, cool, because there's no Navy base in Oklahoma, so there's no way I'm coming back. So there's
Is
no
that why
water.
you picked the Navy? Because Michael could tell you, my husband, who was in the Marines, could tell you that, man, he had to go somewhere, I think Lawton, for some
Yeah.
training or something, and he's like, man, Oklahoma. And I was like, I laughed because I think I was born in Tulsa.
I think you told me that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because there was everyone else that I knew that joined the military was Army, Air Force, Marines, and I was like, I'll just go join the Navy because I don't want to be here. I don't want to live here ever again. Not that I hate Oklahoma; it was a great place to grow
Yeah.
up. I just I need to move on. Like,
Yeah, you
next
would be
chapter.
somewhere else.
So, but yeah, that was impulse for sure. And then I kind of figured out the plan along the way because it met those rocks I was looking for. And then the same thing with this industry. It was very impulse control, but I wouldn't say impulse control because there was no control, but it was more of an impulse. But I think because I went through the Navy and it gave me a lot more discipline in regards to think, plan, and execute. I was able to like, okay, I want to do this. I definitely want to be an originator. So I know that this is not going to give me the best. I'm not going to have a lot of income the first maybe 2 or 3 years in this business. So what I need to do is make sure I'm financially fit to make sure I can handle those next 2 years. What do I need to do that? I need to make sure my income stream in and out every month is under control. I have the financial discipline. That's when I went down to like 50-cent ramen packets and buying pounds and pounds and pounds of chicken thighs. Like that's what I did. Like that's what I did for almost an entire year, eating like that. I'm still going to the gym. Went to Crunch Fitness at $10 a month and having to deal with all that crap and everyone trying to be a fitness influencer. That's what I did. I just worked, went home, ate a bunch of ramen and chicken thighs, and went to the gym. And that helped me reduce my spending, but except like super low.
I was going to say,
when I got to the point,
people don't realize that you could get creative with that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like people who've never. So even though I did not grow up poor, because my mom had grown up poor, she almost raised us like we were poor in a weird way. Like I always joke that my childhood was so bizarre because we went on like these really nice vacations because my dad traveled 50% of the time. So we would like go on these like really nice areas. But then like at home, we like ate Hamburger Helper and like, you know what I mean? Like inexpensive like stuff.
Cooked at home all the time. We always
yes, exactly.
Had dinner at home, stuff like that. Like everything.
Like my mom never got her nails done. She didn't have a maid. Like none of the like luxury type things. Like none of that existed.
We helped around the house. I mean, for me, Friday afternoons were spent cleaning the house for the family. Like I got to the point where I was taking out dining room stuff and like I was the squeegee. Like I would take a towel and I would like push the towel across the floor and stuff like that, vacuum, dusted, all that stuff on a Friday. And that's what I did on Fridays. So that was my response. I did my own laundry by the time I was 9. Like it was for me, it was a requirement for me to help out. So, and we lived that poor way because we couldn't afford anything else. Like, honestly, that's what it boils down to. We were so poor that we'd buy a chicken and I'd help my dad behead the chicken and we had food for the next week. Kind of thing, blood drain and all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting living that lifestyle and knowing that now as an adult, I kind of live a version of that. I still live in the same condo I bought when I was back 9 years ago. I keep my spending extremely low. I'm too busy to spend it. Honestly, that's what it boils down to. But I think what's funny is that people, I think people get caught up in the whole having to spend money. Like they feel like they're going to miss out on something when it doesn't ultimately matter. Like who cares?
Well, and people forget that sometimes to get what you want, it does take sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that's just the reality. And I think a lot of people, they're like, but I don't want to, and it's like, okay, well, that's fine if you don't want to do that. But what's more important? Like which heart are you going to choose?
Yeah.
Because both are going to be hard for different reasons.
Too, right? So, I mean, there's a Tesla that's for $40,000. You don't have to buy the nice $80,000 Tesla. Like, so and it's funny to me because sometimes I'll see clients who post about wanting to invest in this when I've seen their finances. I'm like, dude, I mean, you already, if you are investing in what do I say this? If you're paying someone else's interest, you're not investing. Like you're investing, you're literally giving someone else your investment. So I think that's what's tough. And I think another thing that you brought up was that, you're paying to, that thing you said about paying to, you're working to pay off your house. Another exercise I like to kind of take my clients through sometimes is I take all the minimum payments on all their bills on their credit report, and I compare it to their hourly wage, whether they're salary or not. There's a way to make an hourly wage.
Sure.
Most make like $35 an hour, especially being in the military. And I figure out how many hours they have to work to pay the minimum monthly payments for all those debts on their credit report. I would say on average, it's at least a week and a half, 2 weeks. So they're spending the first half of each month paying off debt. So working towards the debt, not working towards themselves.
Yeah, that's a
So,
very good point. Well, with that, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up? What's your
I don't
biggest,
know.
best piece of advice?
Biggest, best piece of advice. I think the way I've approached my finances, and I kind of mentioned it before, was talking about like, what would you be leaving behind if you were, were unfortunately had to pass away. I think another piece of advice I've learned over the years is how do you, how wealth is measured. And I think I read this. I think it's Think and Grow Rich. I'm not sure. It's one of those books about
Older book.
financial prowess. Whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, it measures wealth in a sense of if you were to quit your active income job today, how long would you last? And that question is, how long would you last based on your current lifestyle? Not so much if you brought it down to knowing that you don't have a job. And
Right.
if it's only a couple of weeks, you're in trouble. So
That's very true.
was it 60s or 90% Americans can't last 3 months, something like that. So
Oh yeah, that does not surprise me,
I
unfortunately.
would say, yeah, self-awareness. Finances are probably the most insecure things that people will want to talk about, especially when I'm looking at it. So they're really insecure with their finances. So I think between that and just getting over the hump that the more you are aware about your finances and where your money is going, because it's time that you're trading your time to make money. And this money is going towards something that's going to take away more of your time if you put it toward debts. So the point is that you're literally wasting your time if you're using it to pay off debt. Like, I don't know what other definition there could be other than truly wasting your time to something that is toward a lot of personal consumer debts. And as you mentioned before, there's a bunch of other situations that come across, and I'm not talking about the rare situation where things happen, but I'm talking about the situation where people have a lot more control than they think they do, I'd say.
Oh yeah. A lot of times people have a lot more control. And with that, I'll just finally say that, again, live the life you want to live and live it intentionally. Get there intentionally, because the truth of the matter is, no matter how Lee handles his finances or I handle mine, you're your own person and you can handle them however you want. But how you handle your finances and how you choose to deal with things is definitely going to impact your life. So whatever that looks like, get there, like I said, get there intentionally. And hopefully this episode of Financial Mastery Simplified has helped you in some way. So please subscribe to hear more, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.